cult is a habit of thinking out of which feelings emerge, out of which words and behaviors emerge to reflect those thoughts. And the thought evolution is a series of choice points, right? Where things go different ways. And if you follow the choice point back far enough, you reach the root, the original thought out of which things emerged and grew. And at that original point of possibility, you have the entire possibility field of humanity open. But as soon as we get a couple of choices along in that cult selection process, vast areas of the possibility field collapse. They are not possible with that fork in the choice. And one of the deep forks in our cult is the cult of compartmentalization, right? So you have a fork in the road where one mode of thinking is ecological, in which all things are connected and all things affect one another. And the other is a compartmentalization, in which everything has a distinct area. Oh, that's the education department. It's not the justice department. But what if uneducated people commit more crimes? Aren't they related? Not in a compartmentalized cult, right? In an ecological cult, of course, everything is connected, and even the distinct categorization and specialization is suspect because it masks the reality of interconnectivity. And so it's the synergistic aspect of cultural design that I want to emphasize, because you can find on Amazon, on vlogs, etc., design of a compartment. Better corporate culture, for example. Find a number of books on that. But it's based after the fork in the road, where corporate and home are partitioned and in tension with one another, right? Because as soon as you create the illusion of distinction, the illusion of partition, and you have ego, I, right? Identifying, right? Attaching itself to different compartments, now you've got a war. Right? As soon as you create the illusion of compartments, you create a war between the I, whose job it is to grow the education department, and the I, whose job it is to grow the justice department, right? Because within a given circle, right, there is a limited amount of time, money, and natural resources. So now comes a jockeying, right? Now comes a jockeying for supremacy to secure more time, more money, more resources than the other department. And rank becomes defined as the securing of more energy than the competitor. Now, this is a problem because one of the best ways to secure more resources is to undermine the other, right? If you want to get elected in a political competition, it is shown that the easiest way to get elected is to find fault with your opponent and expose them, right? So if you start spending energy undermining your colleagues in a shared ecology, and everyone does that, then the entire intelligence and well-being of the ecology will sink to the degree of energy that is spent undermining elements of the ecology, right? So if the Justice Department is trying to undermine the reputation of the education minister, and the education minister is trying to undermine the reputation of the justice manager, and they're both trying to get more money and all of that, right? And then one other part is trying to do less taxes, and now how much energy are they each spending undermining each other, right? Well, that's how much energy is being spent undermining the whole, the ecology. But within a compartmentalized framework, we don't realize that it is the entire ecology that suffers by such a competition, right? But we also don't realize in a cult that there is actually another way to think that transcends the boundary, that transcends the I that identifies with a particular thing and instead looks at the whole, right? So what might holistic or synergistic thinking look like as the path not taken? Well, first of all, the focus in an ecology is on the goal, which is intelligence, right, over well-being, right? So when you're measuring how much well-being is being generated for how many people, at what level of efficiency, now all of these different parts, these different vague distinctions that work within one another, that support one another, become opportunities, become tools, become resources to achieve that goal. And you look at things within an ecological framework in terms of balance, because every ecology that is sustainable has balance at its core, right? If we gave trees carbon dioxide and they gave us back 1/10 of the carbon dioxide, they gave us 10% oxygen, we gave them 90% carbon dioxide, right? In that cycle, the oxygen would not be enough for the trees to keep growing, right? Because humans would start dying or wouldn't populate as much, there wouldn't be enough oxygen. And then the trees would start slowing down their growth as well, because there'd be less humans producing carbon dioxide, right? And so the ecology works in a synergistic balance of exchanged energy. And so the first thing you look at in an ecological system is, where is the asymmetry? Like, let's send energy to the area we're not sending energy, right? And let's take some of the energy away from where we're putting most of the energy, because that tends to achieve the goal of more sustainable well-being for less energy. And that's the metric, and you tweak it. Well, I'll try this within education. Well, I'll try this within this. And you work together and you measure the output of sustainable well-being, but you also measure the efficiency with which it's generated. And you get feedback. Everyone gets feedback. Well, I didn't learn what I needed in school to have a great relationship. So then education evolves to teach great relationship, because having a great relationship is consistent with well-being, sustainable well-being. And having destructive relationships is consistent with unnecessary chronic suffering, right? And so you pivot the subjects, right? Oh, there's no excellent relationship course in high school, but you're first discovering dating and romance in high school, right? So before we have our first romantic relationship, before age 14 or 13 or whatever it is, let's teach, right, the art of communication, the art of seduction, the art of win-win negotiations, the art of good ending agreements, the art of respecting feelings. Let's teach these things, and then we'll measure as we do that in real time. We'll get back feedback as to, is this working, is it not, and how much well-being is being generated by that pivot, right? When everyone is aligned towards species-wide sustainable well-being, right? You also study each culture, each country, and you say, well, they're doing a good job here, but they're not doing a good job over there, right? So this area here, they've got a great diet, but they don't have a great motivational design. So we're going to borrow their diet, and our health is going to go up, but we're going to export, we're going to share a motivational protocol that we've found to work over here. These people are the best in the world at motivating. And these people are the best in the world at creating art per capita, right? The best art per capita is coming out of here. And these people are the best runners in the world, the best, long distance runners. They're coming from this village, right? In this country. And so what are they doing there? What's going on there, right? And does it even matter? Does running long distances have anything to do with well-being, right? So that's what's being measured, and that's what's being tweaked in an ecological culture. Now, it's also very important to understand as a design that each of these things are connected, right? So, for example, a great relationship is supported, right? So you have great relationships, over here, but a great education prepares you with the technology to have a great relationship. But great community design, great ecological design, right? So what's a great ecological design? Well, a great ecological design is walking to all of your activities. Now, to walk to all of your activities, you've got to create microcultures of a small scale, let's say 150 people, right? So groups of 150 people can walk to, first of all, they only need a few acres, right, of land for 150 people. And they can walk to the bakery, right? And one of those 150 people can be a baker, right? They can walk, or they can walk to the community store if one of them isn't a baker, and a baker can be in the region, right? So they can walk to the store, they can walk to the dentist, they can walk to work, right? So good ecological design says that everything needed to function and live is within comfortable walking distance. Now, that's also good financial design. Why? Because you don't need a car. Certainly you don't need 2 or 3, right? So if you have good ecological design, then you don't need a car. Then you have good safety design, right? So they dovetail together. So you have good ecological design equals walking, right? Equals not having a car, right? So we're meeting in the middle here. Equals greater safety, equals lower trauma, equals less money being spent, equals less stress and fighting over money, equals better relationships, right? Equals more intimacy, so that you know your partner, equals better relationships, equals better health, because you're walking rather than, equals cleaner air, right? So better ecology, because you're not in a city driving, etc., right? Equals greater energy, right? Equals greater sex life, right? Equals better energy levels, right? So you've got greater energy from walking and such. But then when you have regular sex, you feel good, which equals better social interactions, more of a sense of humor, etc. Equals more relationships altogether, right? Because when you have better relationships, people want to have more friendships. If all your relationships end in disaster, you're not motivated to meet someone new, right? And that is the chronic state of many Western cults, is the majority of initiations of outreaches end in disaster. And so you have people isolating to protect themselves from disaster, which then means more loneliness, right? And it's just not being designed as a synergy, right? So you have a synergy in the middle of this ecological design where every single thing supports every other thing. You see, and if and when you think compartmentalization, you can't make change. Like if you tell someone in an American, town, get rid of your car, they'll look at you as if you're nuts. What do you mean, get rid of my car? And they're correct, because it's being viewed in an isolated compartment. Because they're not getting rid of the car at the same time they're walking to work, at the same time they're in a micro village, at the same time they've got more energy, et cetera, right? They don't want to walk because they're fat. They're fat because they sit and watch TV and drive cars all day. And they eat junk food because they feel terrible, and the junk food numbs their feelings, right? So you want to eat junk food when you feel terrible, but you don't want to eat junk food when you feel alive and you feel great. When you feel alive and creative and present in the moment with another human being and you want to experience each moment, the last thing you want to do is eat 10 donuts, right? And then feel like I can barely feel my body and I'm numb and I want to sleep. No, right? You've got an interesting life, right? But try and tell someone with a miserable fucking life to be aware of every moment and meditate. Oh, I don't want to meditate. I just want to tune out, right? I want to watch more TV. That helps me tune out. I want to, right? But when you have a very vital life, you want to meditate, right? When you meditate, you see things that you don't otherwise see, which helps you have better relationships, better finances, better health, right? And so culture, the opportunity of thinking of culture as an ecological whole, is the opportunity to create synergies that have to work in threes, right? So you live together in a group of 150 people, right? Then you walk to work, and then you get rid of the car, right? And then you save money so you don't have to work so many hours. You don't have to work the hours to pay for the car. And, and that alone is not enough. Like people in boring, shitty houses of cardboard box neighborhoods that just, who wants to be home watching TV or in that little shitty neighborhood, right? So you think of giving up a car, but when you create a community, a circle, a piece of land that is more beautiful, that is more exciting, that is more satisfying, that is easier than any place that you could go, then it's more exciting to stay home. It's boring to go to a mall when you have a game room, when you have an art studio, when you have a massage, when you have an on-site hot springs and sauna, right? It's fucking boring to leave the community when you've got a game room a spa, 5 different temperatures of hot pools, a waterfall, slides, gardens, art, pottery, woodworking, a tool shed to make stuff. And when you've got pods that you can work remotely doing digital work around the world, who the fuck wants to leave acres of magnificent gardens that taste and smell beautiful with people that are exciting, that you know, that you want to connect with? Who wants to leave that to go fucking shopping with strangers and drive a car to get there and walk around junk that you don't really need, right? So the whole framework has to shift together. You have to make your home 10 times more exciting than leaving it before giving up, quote unquote, a car becomes giving up a burden that you don't need. And you have maybe 3 cars for the whole community, very nice electric cars, that you just type in your app the rare time you actually want to leave and do something else, because all your friends that are outside of the community, if they know about you, they want to visit you because where you're living is 10 times better than what they're experiencing, right? And so their greatest joy is to come visit you where you are. So why do you need the car, right? But that takes that piece with it, right? So it's the art of synergistic thinking. So we have to regress culturally to the time when we divided and put things in compartments, and then began thinking compartmentally, and then can't change anything because in reality, you have to change all the things at once, right? And that's the beauty, right? Because you also have to go back to the idea that, to have an interesting city or whatever, you have to have millions of strangers living together. Right? The reality of city life is that you know fewer people in a big city than you do in a small town. So if you have a really small town that's built around the human brain's capacity to intimately know not more than 150 people, now you create massive amounts of intimacy, right? So this is an exciting area of ecological design.